Welcome to Roots and Rishte, a podcast focused on all things South Asian mental health.
We are your co-hosts, two psychologists in the field who are also work besties, wanting to invite you to join us as we speak about patterns and dynamics we see in our clinical work.
We want to have the serious conversations, the topics which are taboo and whispered about, but we also want to celebrate the joys and wins that we experience on a daily basis.
There will be practical applications we hope you can implement in your day-to-day life, which is not like your typical auntie's advice. And just a quick disclaimer, this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not constitute as a therapeutic relationship or therapeutic advice. Should you want to work with us, please reach out. Welcome to Roots and Rishte podcast. I'm Dr. Ambreen Basria.
I'm Dr. Simrat Kaur Padda.
And today we're going to be addressing a very key and integral part of our podcast, Rishte.
Rishte, yeah. And when we talk about Rishte, we're kind of talking about it from a more global sort of standpoint, right? And so a lot of times the context of Rishte is around marriage proposals, which, I mean, there will be lots of time for us to talk about marriage and expectations with marriage and, premarital stuff and after you get married. So there's a lot to talk about with marriage. But when we're talking about Rishte particularly, we're talking about all relationships.
Yeah. We're talking about friendships. We're talking about family relationships, children relationships, right? Anything and everything that we can kind of discuss is a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is our relationship to these people? What is the relationship to ourselves?
Yeah.
It's all of it.
Yeah. And we're social creatures, right?
Yeah.
Like as humans, we're social creatures and having that village or having those social connections is such an integral part of who we are. But they're not always rainbows and unicorns and lollipops, right? Like there's a lot of maladaptive, dysfunctional dynamics that are at play. And we just kind of want to talk about it more once again from that South Asian lens of what it is, the themes, the patterns that we are noticing in the work that we do and the research that we do.
Absolutely. So I think I'm going to bring to attention one of the therapists that we have studied actually in our schooling, and that was Alfred Adler, right? He was like instrumental in talking about sibling dynamics, right? And like, what does your role in the family, how does that impact how you function, right? And in the Southeast Asian space, this is so huge.
Yeah. It's so varied, right? It's so varied in terms of what that looks like. And so when we think of siblings, we think of kind of those like characteristics, the firstborn, the middle child, the youngest child, the ones that get kind of mixed in or lost in the mix even sometimes.
And even for us, like our own experiences, right? Like I am the eldest daughter.
I'm the youngest in mine.
Yeah. And just the different perspectives that brings, right? Like as the eldest daughter, like I was responsible for being the first child, but also I had this like expectation that I had to do everything that everyone wanted me to do perfectly, right? Or like, I was the one that was like breaking the boundaries, breaking the rules, kind of doing the first things that my parents never expected me to do, right? And then this paved the way for my sister. Shit's so easy.
Yeah. I feel like I can understand that. Kind of even thinking from sort of our family dynamic with the oldest of the siblings, there was a lot of resistance to kind of, what she wanted to do and how she wanted to live her life. And reflecting back on it now, I think a lot of it probably came from some fear from my parents as well. So we spent the formative years of our life living in London, Ontario. So it's a very Caucasian sort of community. And I think that, looking back now, there was probably some fear that the culture was going to get lost, right? That the values that are so important to them are going to get lost raising their children in this community. And so when my sister would want to do things like, like go to the mall or go to the movies or do things, if it almost felt like a threat to my parents, like it was a threat to something that felt really important to them. But then as kind of the siblings progressed, that threat kind of came down. And, by the time I came along, it was pretty much a non-issue, right? And so, just kind of thinking of those dynamics and the resistance that the eldest usually has to hold and kind of break through. And a lot of times it does become easier for the kids. But when we think of family dynamic or sibling dynamics, I mean, like even within the siblings, like there can be a lot of hurt with that. And I have so much gratitude for my sister that she did that for us. and she was able to do that for us, but I'm sure her experience may be a little bit different than mine.
Absolutely. And,
Mhm.
like we're just right now talking about sibling dynamics among sisters,
Yeah.
right? Like we can't even forget the brothers piece, right? Like,
Mhm.
and we have 2 boys. We
Mhm,
get it. We
mhm.
totally get this on a different level, right?
Yeah.
And like the thing is I was thinking about this, like the eldest son, the level of responsibility that's on the eldest son
Yeah.
is just outrageously incredible, right? Like it's
Mhm.
like so much there's so much expectation to take care of your family, to be the one that holds the family together,
Yeah.
to be like the one that never can do any wrong, but you are the one in charge,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
That's wild. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is, and in terms of how that sort of manifests over the years in a lot of the couples work that I do, right? And so we talk a lot about sort of the relationship that females have with their in-laws, and understandably, because it's very complex and it's very complicated, and sometimes it's amazing and sometimes it's not so great. And there's a big adjustment, right? Because it's usually the girl who is sort of leaving her home and going to the in-laws. But in the couples dynamic or even individual kind of working with the boys or the men, what we see is that they are holding so much of that pressure, right? And so they're kind of in the middle of wanting to make sure that their partner's okay, but also wanting to make sure that their parents are okay. And sometimes I think they get lost in the conversation
Yeah.
because so much of the focus can just by default be on the female experience.
Mhm.
But yeah, to kind of that point, like the amount of responsibility that the eldest child holds. A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then beyond just like sibling dynamics, right? Like we're also
Hmm.
talking about friendships because
Hmm.
I think there's another piece here that we often don't talk about enough, right? But we as a Southeast Asian community in like India or Pakistan usually stay in like, very like like towns, like we're in
Hmm.
similar towns as like people from our own backgrounds and things like that, maybe villages or
Hmm.
things like that, right? And then now we've come to like the United States or Canada and here we are, we're in a melting pot,
Hmm.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
not just Southeast Asian. And in Southeast Asia in particular,
Mhm.
there are so many other cultures, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
Muslim.
Yeah,
You're
I'm sick.
you're
Yeah,
sick, right?
yeah.
So for us, like even that, like we're in a completely different world of developing and establishing friendships and
Mhm.
relationships that are
Mhm.
very different than the way our parents used to do this.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you use the word melting pot because a lot of times when I kind of think of it from a cultural perspective, melting pot is sort of how we see it in the States, right?
Yeah.
The expectation was that everyone was going to kind of the melting pot idea that
Yeah.
everyone was going to kind of become very uniform, or if you will, right?
Yeah.
In Canada, that's like how do you hold on to your own culture while still sort of integrating into the community that you're working in,
Right.
right?
Right.
And when I did my dissertation, one of the comparisons I did was between Punjabi Sikhs in Canada versus Punjabi Sikhs in the States, and that was something that was really sort of noticeable is like sort of the pressure or the expectation of the melting pot and how that differs from a lot of what sort of the Canadian counterparts were experiencing, where they
Right.
were able to hold a little bit more pride with their identity, or they were able to more comfortably sort of exist as who they are. Not without its challenges,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just heard you say melting pot, and it just kind of
Yeah.
made me think of the difference between the
Yeah.
two.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
like so much of this is like the relationships we develop with each other, the relationships that are that we develop with ourselves, right? Like this
Hmm.
all impacts all of it, right?
Yeah.
It can be traumatic to build relationships and it can be incredibly healing to build relationships,
Mhm,
right?
mhm, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and even kind of if we go back to the families, right? Even the roles that siblings can play, like the eldest child or the caregiver or the rebellious one or the quiet one. Like a lot of times we get labeled, right? Or
Yeah.
kids get labeled or individuals get labeled, and how those labels form our core beliefs of who
Yeah.
we are and our sense of identity,
Yeah.
and how that continues to manifest throughout our lives. And so a lot of the work we do is kind of recognizing, what are these core beliefs? Like, what are these narratives that you were taught at a really young
Yeah.
age? And so sometimes people take this idea of being the caregiver and they carry it through their entire life.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes that can lead to that overfunctioning or that burnout that we've talked about previously.
And I think to that point, right? Like this brings up that like piece where it's like, okay, this is a piece that really connects to it all, right? It's
Hmm.
like, okay, this is our core beliefs, these are our experiences, and then who's bearing witness to this,
Yeah.
right? Like there's this like invisible deterioration of like mental health that we
Hmm.
witness within the community, amongst our friends and all of that. And I think we do a lot better of a job now of being
Yeah.
like, hey, are you okay? Like, how can I support? How can I show
Mhm.
up for you? Right. Um, but that hasn't always been the case. We haven't
Mhm.
always known how to respond.
Yeah, because there's a discomfort to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, going back to the idea of emotional literacy was not prevalent for so many people growing up, and so there's a discomfort with kind of emotions and emotionality and
Yeah.
having these conversations.
And I think to that point, like it's really easy for us to be like, oh, you're going through something really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You need to go to therapy.
Mhm.
Right. And like as if
Mhm.
like therapy is like the cookie cutter fix all
Yeah.
situation here. But we know that that's not the case. Right. Like therapy is a piece,
A
it's a
piece.
piece of the
Yeah.
pie. It's not the whole pie here.
Mhm.
Right. And like other pieces of the pie are supports that we get from friends, from maybe coworkers, maybe
Yeah.
from like the neighbor next door
Yeah.
or the, you know, or our family even,
Mhm.
right? And so we have to really kind of think about this from an angle of like, how do we seek support? What is the support that we're looking for? And how do we
Yeah.
give support, right?
Yeah. How do we provide that support?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
What are the signs that you kind of notice or you
Yeah,
recognize?
yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there is a blogger, she's a smiley blogger, so of course, like I
Mhm,
followed her.
mhm, mhm.
Her name is Sabrina Molu, and
Okay.
she talks a little bit about this concept of like, we're always saying like Burr is our village and we need a
Yeah.
village and we need to rely on our village of support, right? But we don't actually know how to be a villager,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
what does it actually mean to be a villager?
To show up for other people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
And I think even sometimes when people have the intentions of wanting to be able to do that, sometimes life is just lifing too hard. Do you know
yeah,
what I mean? And
yeah,
so, but once again, it's kind of like what we're looking for in terms of support. How can we sort of provide that for other people as well? It's that
yeah, yeah,
reciprocal kind of energy.
yeah. And you know, I often think about this too, right? Like sometimes like our own lives, for example,
Mhm,
so
mhm,
wild. They're
mhm,
so busy,
mhm,
right? Like they're
mhm.
so busy. But I think about like the people that are in my life and the people I like actually care about, like the
Yeah.
people that align with my values, right?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
these are the people that value me as much as I value them. And they're important to me.
Mhm,
Right. And so
mhm.
even like with children, with everything that I have going on, they are important to me. Right. So for me, sometimes it's like I may not be able to pick up the phone and call you, but I will send you a text,
Mhm,
right? And I will let
mhm.
you know that I'm thinking of you,
Yeah.
right? Or sometimes it's mindful of like, okay, like, do you have the space today? Like, my friend and I started doing this
Yeah.
recently where she and I will be like, listen, I have something that I need to talk about. Do you have the space today
Yeah.
to hear me out?
Space meaning capacity.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I like that. Yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of that idea. Are you looking for advice or are you just looking for an ear?
yeah, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Like, do you need me to help you solve your problem or do you just need me to listen?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think the challenge kind of comes for there are some family dynamics where it's very closed in, right? And so it's not encouraged for girls to, and I'll use girls as examples, but maybe this is, the same for in some families with the guys as well, but to go out and build those social connections, or right, or to have friend groups, or to be social in that regard, it's very much insular.
yeah,
And so sometimes that I think can be really lonely and isolating for
yeah,
people, particularly or like the dynamic of in-laws, right? I've seen so many girls who once they kind of get married and they move if they move in with their in-laws, for example, that becomes really insular in a way that feels incredibly uncomfortable for them. But because of the pressure that's involved, or the guilt or the shame or the expectation, they don't feel like they can kind of get out of it. And I
right.
think that's where this external support of something like therapy or finding that person or those people can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But sometimes we need support in learning how to do that,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And I think, we have to remember this too, right? Like the concept in our community and in our spaces has always been
Mhm.
you don't talk about what's happening inside your home, outside of your home,
Yeah.
right? Like you don't air your dirty laundry,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so there's this real expectation that we should not be talking about things. Like it is a
Mhm.
real taboo to talk about how we feel or what's going on in our
Yeah.
home,
Yeah.
right?
Or kind of even from the flip end, I don't know if you've ever gotten this, but the amount of people who have asked me, and they tend to be kind of in the older generations who've asked me like, "Don't you get tired of listening to people's problems all day?" Or like, "You're just kind of sitting there listening to people's problems all day. Like, isn't
Yeah.
that exhausting?" Or "Why would you want to listen to people's problems all day?"
Mhm.
And honest to goodness, that's not how I view therapy.
No,
Like
no.
that's not my role. That's not what I'm doing. And when I try to explain it to them, kind of like, this is what I'm actually doing, for the ones who get it, like they get it, and they're
Yeah.
like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
right?
I can't tell you the number of times I walk away from
Hmm.
a long day of doing therapy and I
Yeah.
go, wow, I love my job. That's so great.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. On the flip side, I do something very similar in the mornings when I know that I have a really busy day, and it's a little bit daunting. You see your schedule and you
Yeah.
kind of see, what's kind of coming up for the day, but just to kind of take a moment of gratitude of like, this is what I worked
Yeah.
for,
Yeah.
right? Because there's real sort of
Yeah.
purpose in what we do.
And then to kind of celebrate, like, I think it's a celebration, right? Like, so
Yeah.
many of them kind of come back to therapy and then they're kind of like, oh my goodness. So I really reflected on the things that we talked about last time. And then I did this different this time. And I'm just like
Yeah.
floored. I'm
Yeah.
floored, right? Because that's such an incredible shift and change.
Mhm.
What might seem minor to you,
Yeah.
that's it. Right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of exactly what support is about though. It's
Mhm.
not this large leaping thing that you must do for
Yeah.
somebody. It's just, hey, how are you?
Mhm.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And talk about relationships, right? Like that's a potential power of a relationship that is supportive and compassionate and willing to listen. And I understand as a therapist, as a clinician, like it's different, right?
Yeah.
We're not friends with our clients. We're not, socially engaged with our clients. It is a very one-sided sort of scenario, but the energy is real and the vibe is real and the connection is very, very
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's where kind of finding those supports. And so when we talk about, what do we do with this? Like, we have our family dynamics, we have, our labels or our rules growing up in who we are. And a lot of times, most of the time, like we can't change the people around us, right?
Yeah.
Like they are in their ways because they're in their ways. And once
Yeah.
again, this isn't to villainize, but it's just to understand that there's a reason that, those dynamics are at play. And so then we kind of shift the focus to, okay, so what can I do about it? Right? What's in my control?
Mhm.
In
And
yeah.
even kind of shifting into that, right? Like, what are my values around it?
Mhm.
Right? Like, how do I value the things around it?
Yeah.
Right? Like, where do
Yeah.
they fall in relation to who I am?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah. So the advice from Antia would probably be, don't talk about it, right? Keep your mouth shut, keep everything indoors and inside your house. But we're not your Antia in that
Nope.
regard, and so our advice is different, right? What we encourage is that idea of recognizing what you're saying. What are my values?
Mhm.
How can I start to pivot and shift? We're not talking about leaps and bounds, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about those small, significant movements.
Yeah. Like baby things, right? Like,
Yeah.
and who in my life aligns with my values,
Hmm.
right? Respects my values, right?
Yeah.
And can they be people of support? Are these the people that are my support systems,
Mhm.
right? And are these the people that I can be their support system,
That's right.
right? Like
Yeah.
I can also be the villager.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would kind of think like, how do you even identify what some of your supports are, right? Or what your values are, I mean. One way could be, find a role model, like
Yeah.
see somebody that you look up to in regards of like the life that they lead or the energy that they carry themselves with, and identify like what is it that they hold that you would also like to cultivate more for
Yeah.
yourself,
Yeah.
right? Is it compassion? Is it kindness? Is it, you know, action?
Yeah.
Like, is it authenticity? Like, what is it that they hold that feels like it would be really important for you to cultivate as well?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us today. This was our Roots and Rishte podcast, and we'll see you next time.